Wow, that was all muted. Hey guys, welcome to She Knows Arsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at It's Jessino. And this is the live match reaction for Arsenal's Carabao Cup match. I don't even know what round it was. It doesn't really matter to me, but Arsenal 2, Leeds nil. That's what the squad is meant to do. That's why you have squad depth. Literally, that was the definition of like exactly what we should be seeing from experienced squad players coming in to allow our starters to rest. We didn't have to do what we usually have to do. We didn't have to bring in Aubameyang. He wasn't even there. Didn't have to bring in Thomas Partey. We just I felt like that's exactly the type of professional performance you want to see from your squad. And we knew it wasn't going to be pretty because they're not going to have that cohesion and that like connection that you have when you play with people that you played with all the time. But they did exactly what they were supposed to do against a really, really poor Leeds side. It's so funny because it's almost like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where I have no idea where that team from last season went, and this team now looks completely different. They're probably just going through that second year slump or whatever, but they were terrible. But the good thing is that in the past, when we played against terrible teams in these earlier stages of cups, we've struggled rotating. This time we were able to rotate and it was fine. I never felt scared. I was never like worried. There were some really good performances in there, some not so good ones. We're going to be talking our winners, our losers, what we've learned, what has been confirmed, taking some of your questions and all of those great and wonderful things. There are 75 of you guys watching already on all platforms. Thank you so much for being here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to go ahead and bring in my panel now. I have George. Hey, George.
Hello.
I have Souls. Hey, Souls.
Hey.
And I have Io. Hey, Io, how are you?
Hey, girl.
Io's late as usual. I don't know where he was, taking forever. Probably. What were you?
Eating
What were you
dinner.
doing? Just getting ready? What were
I
you? What
was
were you
I
thinking
was
there?
I was eating dinner and two-stepping for the result.
Oh, you were excited about that result. Well, we all should be excited, right? Because we won a game and it is what it is, But I don't know, Io, if you know about how we do instant reactions. When we win, we actually do our assignments, winners, losers, what's learned and what's confirmed. When we lose, we just rage. So we won. So we're going to be doing all of that. Let's see who's in the chat box. Everybody telling me that I was muted. Thank you, guys. Matt G says, let's go, Jess. Bakuda says, Jacinho. It was the round of 16. I didn't even know, you guys. The Carabao Cup is just not something that I really get real hype for. It's more like the FA Cup. So these early rounds, I'm like, what? Mr. Austin, Leno redemption arc. G Kasi, big up, Jess. Big up to you as well. Yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's do the winners. No, actually, let's do what was learned or what was confirmed to us today. I did have something written down. Let me just pull it up because I could not remember. Okay, so what has been confirmed to me is that the backups can do a professional job when we need them to. I don't know if you guys remember last season when we played against Southampton and we had this rotated squad. I remember it was like a 4:30 morning game, rotated squad because at the weekend we were going to be playing a difficult team. So Arteta did his rotations. I remember Willian playing. I think I remember Pepe playing, but ultimately we were bumped out of the FA Cup because the backup players who were more than good enough just didn't show up to perform against Southampton. This season, they did. And it was pretty much like exactly what we needed to do to let the starters just kind of rest. And they also got much needed game time. And the particular people, the people that I'm talking about are like Cedric, Holding, Chambers, Kolasinac, Nketiah, and Ainsley Maitland-Niles. I definitely left some people out because I think some of the people that were out there were trying to hurt us and definitely didn't add to the positivity in this performance. But I think ultimately they did what they were supposed to, and that's why you have a deep squad. And that was Leeds' strongest squad. Like that was pretty much their main people. And we
No
were able to
Bamford though. No
no
Bamford.
Bam, yeah, no
And Rafinha,
Bamford,
that's it. Other than them two, that's pretty
And
yeah.
much the
Rafinha,
squad.
yeah, and Rafinha, yeah.
So yeah, that does make a difference. But ultimately, if they had them, we could have had Saka, Aubameyang, Thomas Partey. I think that ultimately would neutralize the better players that they would have anyway. But George, was anything learned or confirmed to you today?
Yeah, I mean, I guess confirmed. We're gonna have to have a Pepe discussion. That's gonna add to my losers because what's
You're
been
jumping the
absolutely
gun, mate.
confirmed. Well, I mean, look, what's been confirmed to me just factually is when you set up the team for him to thrive, these same issues occur. His same lack of fundamentals, his same lack of decision making, his same poor touch. Like these things don't change when you set up the team to have him thrive. He had a leggy attacking midfielder next to him. He had a right back that was willing to overlap to provide an option. This was a game that he should have thrived. There were tons of spaces for him to exploit with Leeds' back line. Like there wasn't an issue of space. There wasn't an issue of low blocks. There wasn't an issue of not having an attacking midfielder. There wasn't an issue of not having people to run for him. Even in the front line, you're looking at, Eddie and, Martinelli, who were great runners. It wasn't even a case of, oh, there was no one else pressing. Yeah, I just I don't think that we're going to have a talk about him and about what best to really build up that asset again, because fundamentally you can't have a 72 million pound signing that's on the bench wasting away and playing like a 5 million pound signing. And yeah, that's a little facetious, but I mean, the point is, we can't be having these performances because we're going to need him. And as much as we hammer him, maybe me specifically, but elsewhere on the channel, it's like we need him to work. I don't get happy when I see this, because for me, he really should have done a lot better. I think what's been learned from me, though, is Ainsley Maitland-Niles. For me, man of the match. He's definitely one of my winners. But what I learned was, there's a midfielder performance in there. I've always defended Ainsley. I felt as though that he's got potential in the midfield, and I think today he was brilliant. So bright in terms of all of his duels. He rarely lost one. He was excellent in terms of recovery. There were many times when he was, 2v3 or 2v1, and he defended excellently. He was just very composed on the ball as well. And I think this suits him, this type of game, a game that's kind of transitional with a lot of gaps in between. It suits his style. I think he runs into issues when there's a little bit more of a low block and he has to make decisions a little bit more quickly. But he was just absolutely phenomenal. He was everywhere on the pitch today. So for me, yeah, that was probably my learned and confirmed moments.
Yeah, for sure. I think with Ainsley, I just saw somebody who immediately just jumped ahead in the line of Elneny. I think their performances were quite stark in terms of, the levels. I really think Ainsley was over here and Elneny was kind of like very much so working against us. I mean, he was poor in possession, he was slow on the ball, he was just
You're being
not
harsh.
very good at what I'm not. He was very much so one of the
Working
worst guys on
against
the
though,
pitch for
Jess.
me.
No.
So
He wasn't that bad. Look,
he
we
was
know
bad
we
to
know what
me.
Elneny is. He's not a progressor, but what he is a deep line player. Like he was blocking a lot. He was cutting their team apart. The thing is, with I don't think we would have much control in that game if it wasn't for him. That's what he brings us. You do need a risk adverse player against someone like Leeds. If you're constantly giving them the ball, they're going to be back on top of you. And I think he did well for what we know Elneny can do.
He was average
Yeah.
for me. I don't know
I
about
think I
well.
don't
I'm
think he
tough. It's
was
tough.
I
It's
don't think
tough
he was
about his
that
on
good.
the ball. That was the issue, I think, for me. Like there was a couple loose touches. And look, I mean, at the same token, you can say, look, a lot of these people haven't played. Period.
That's
Never
true.
mind together. And so, if you're expecting kind of fluidity and attacking patterns in terms of this team, there were 9 changes, right? So like I am cognizant of that. But I mean, I'm kind of with Souls where you needed a little bit of balance to let Ainsley show his stuff in terms of what he did. But at the same token, it was a little bit hit and miss for me, especially on the ball with Elneny.
Well,
I think off the ball he was okay, but
I think
on it,
my point really was just that, like, the reality is if you're looking at Ainsley Maitland-Niles and Elneny to come into the midfield
yeah,
in a game in the Premier League, I think at this point you would choose Ainsley over Elneny. That was my
for sure.
main point, is that in the past, Elneny would come in. Ainsley wasn't even an option. Now, not only is he an option, not only do we see him as an option, somebody who can actually play midfield, but has hops and skipped and jumped over somebody who, for me, was always that next guy in line if Thomas couldn't play or Xhaka couldn't play. So that was my main point. I don't think Elneny was great. You can't have a good game off of the ball and then be really poor in possession. For me, if you're 29 and you're supposed to be an experienced player coming into this team, may seem harsh, We may know that he's middle of the ground, but there were a lot of players out there, Cedric, Holding, Chambers,
He was the
that were good
worst
on the
player on the
ball.
pitch for me, Cedric. Cedric was
He was not
absolutely
that bad.
He wasn't
he
the
was
worst. He wasn't the
horrendous
worst.
on the
He
ball.
was not the worst.
He was
He was not
horrendous
the
for
worst.
me.
Though.
Okay. Well, let's get back on track. So Ainsley Maitland-Niles, good performance, good guy, did a good job. Like, he was actually really impressive. Was there anything that you learned today, Io, about the team, Arteta, what we're doing? Anything
Yeah,
new?
no. I would definitely say what I learned is we definitely know our strongest team. You know, that's for sure. Because when you don't have Tomiyasu, when you don't have Gabriel, when you don't have Partey, certainly after the Villa performance, you notice it. And I noticed that there was just tons more space at the back without Tomiyasu and Gabriel. And also El Neni, yeah, I've got to say, El Neni's El Neni, you know, but he should have been protecting the back line a bit better. And there was times where I just seen him jog into the screen, into view of the lens, the camera lens, where for me personally, he should have been really trying to nullify any attacks going forward. Coming at us. So with El Neni, I'm just used to what you get. But I do think with El Neni, he's the sort of player that he probably, you said about his age being 29, being mature. I think he probably thrives when he's playing a bit more or is seen as somebody that is likely to play. But I think now he knows with the midfield we have, it's probably unlikely he's going to get much games. And certainly with Ainsley Maitland-Niles looking like he's fancied by Arteta as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think it just depends on how you see it. I think it's very easy to see him as just, this is El Neni because this is what he gives you. I just expect him to be a little bit better than that. And when I watched Ainsley, I think because he was so bright, it made me look at El Neni like, you know. But Souls, for you, anything learned or confirmed today in the performance?
Yeah, Arteta doesn't need to overthink it. It's something that's confirmed for me because you've done a 4-2-3-1 again. And guess what? You didn't have Partey, you didn't have Xhaka, and guess what? You won. So you can do it, Arteta. You can do it, but you just need to stop being stupid. Something that I learned was, what did I didn't actually learn any. Well, I did, but I didn't at the same time. I'd say what was learned for me is Leno is a good shot stopper, but he's nowhere near what Arsenal need in terms of first team football.
Totally.
I'd say that's a confirmed and a learned because we know, or we said that, okay, let's give him a chance once he's off, like as in Ramsdale comes in and he's on the bench. Let's see what he then comes on and does. I think he played better, but I just don't, I still see Ramsdale being like, if he's in there, we're keeping a clean sheet and he's better in transition. We move the ball better at the back. It's a bit unfair because obviously he's had Ben White and Holding, who don't get me wrong, were superb. But obviously if you had Gabriel there, then maybe the back line would have been better for him to play out the back, whatever. But he seemed to be better and he seemed to be a bit more aware rather than those lapses of concentration he's had. And maybe being dropped was the best thing for him. So I think my sort of, they're my two confirmed and learns.
He still kind of went long though, didn't he? I mean, at the same
That's
token,
fine though sometimes.
which for me, like he was excellent in shot stopping, but just factually he was horrible in build up, and he kept going long. And for me, especially on a Leeds, like if you had a Leeds team that were a lot more clinical in terms of their transition threats, we'd be in trouble. Especially where I kind of draw back to the games with West Ham. Like the whole reason that game got out of control was the fact he kept going long, and despite having good shot stopping ability, that was the reason that game turned. And for me, he was really poor on the ball today, and he let it go, which is fine. Like if you're not comfortable, I'd rather you do that than attempt something that you're not comfortable with. But
I don't think it was that bad. I've seen worse from him. I just think he was a bit. I still rather Ramsdale, but he wasn't. He wasn't that bad. I mean, the thing is,
sure, but
no. I think he wasn't that. He was better than what I've seen of him, but he's still nowhere near what Ramsdale offers.
You know what I'll say about Leno? I think at this point he's in damage limitation mode, and he's very aware that, for me, he's been protecting himself for a year. I think that's why he doesn't play out of the back, because you have to be brave to do that, and you have to be willing to take that L if it doesn't go right when you're playing out of the back. And I think for a very long time, pretty much ever since, I would say around the Wolves-Burnley game last season, where you just saw him start to go long because he was afraid to make a mistake. And that's because he's trying to protect his international career, which I think is probably hanging on by a thread. Hansi Flick was there watching, Ramsdale be the number one against Spurs in the North London Derby. So at this moment, I don't think he really can afford one of those where we're passing out of the back and it doesn't work out and he gets punished. So I don't expect much from him at this point. Arteta he pretty much said so, that Leno's doing his own thing. And I wouldn't expect him to do anything different at the moment because let's be real, he's looking for a move. If you're looking for a move, you're not going to risk yourself.
Totally.
I think my biggest issue, guys, is he has to release the ball. Like I don't expect the between the line firing. I don't expect him to clip the ball like Ramsdale's been doing to Tavares to get us started. I don't mind that, but the issue is when you've got Ben White, who was our main progressor there, who was just phenomenal on his own. But like when you've got somebody that's willing to take the ball off you, release it quicker. There were countless times where we stop a counterattack, he holds on to it, he waits till they get into their settled shape, and then he'll release the ball to whether it's somebody close by like Holding or even Ben White, whereas he could have just released it very quick. That was one of the biggest things that I think was lost when we lost Emmy. We don't have a quick decision-making goalkeeper. And, Ramsdale, he's got excellent distribution, but one of his big key strengths is releasing the ball quickly. And I just don't see that Leno does that. And if he doesn't, he then goes long. And then for me, when you combine those two, you basically just give the ball back to the opposition. And we basically just recycle and go again. And so, look, I understand his limitations, but for me, he's got to do better about releasing the ball quickly to our defenders. And that's okay, especially when you have somebody like Ben White who will demand the ball from you. That's why I get so upset, because it doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't.
Yeah, it's always. Sorry.
Oh, really quick, Souls, was there an update on Ben White?
Yeah, but he's not injured. It's just that he was not feeling too great. There's a bug apparently going around, which is true because a lot of people are getting flu-like symptoms, but it's not COVID.
Sick?
Yeah, so he was not feeling so great. He's been ill for the past 2-3 days, so that's the reason he was taken off. So he's not injured. He's just not feeling great.
Somebody who wasn't feeling well.
He was fucking phenomenal.
That was really good.
I can actually vouch for that because there actually is a bug going around. Well, I don't know if it's a worldwide thing, but definitely in England. Yeah, definitely in England where it's flu-like symptoms, but it's not quite the flu, but it's not COVID, but it is something. But they just aren't really, because they're testing negative for it, and it's not quite like the flu, but it's kind of, so it's weird. But yeah.
Well, that's a good thing. Then he can potentially play against Leicester. But what were you going to say, Aya?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say I totally agree with George in the fact that Leno releasing the ball is just so infuriating, because what I think it also does is it essentially psychologically it gives the opposition that feeling that we're not on the front foot, we're not going to attack them. It gives them that feeling that we're a bit anxious, and then they get emboldened as well. And what you've noticed, or certainly what I've noticed with Ramsdale, is when he releases the ball quickly, as soon as we're on the attack, you can see the opposition are obviously thinking, hold on, what's going on here? And, they're disheveled. Whereas with how Leno plays, I think he's an awesome shot stopper. We've seen it today with what he did. But yeah, that is his Achilles heel. He just can't release the ball quick enough.
It gives anxiety to your defensive line, Jess. Like, this is why, look, it's not why we're so shit with some of the players we are, but he does give anxiety when you hold on to the ball and then you release it to players that are already having a counter press that are on them. Look back to the last game. How many times did Ramsdale run out with the ball and throw it out to ESR quick, and we've got a 1v1 opportunity? Like, those are things that aren't distribution. Like, that's a goalkeeping trait that you can do, I can do. We can coach that to happen. That's just you refusing to release the ball quickly, whether that's from the feet or from your hands. You just don't do that. And for me, that's not on, especially for a goalkeeper that, like you said, is an international looking to compete. These are some basics that I need to see happen. And I understand that you're second choice, but you're not going to go and challenge and get yourself in contention by doing these things. So, yeah, it was just very infuriating for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think once I get to a certain point with a player and I realize that they're not going to be here and they've checked out, I check out on them, and I've checked out on Leno. I have very little expectations of him at this point. He infuriated me so much from the back end of last season that at this point I'm just like, whatever, like, you know what I mean? But I totally understand that, because if we do for some reason have to play him, he will cost us the way that he plays. But there is an update on Odegaard and Tierney. We already knew that Tierney was out due to injury. Odegaard was also out due to injury. I was shocked not to see him in this lineup, but we knew it had to have been something because I think he would have maybe played today, should be back against Leicester. So that makes things a little bit interesting. I think going into the weekend's match, it's going to be interesting to see what Arteta does, especially with Emile Smith-Rowe playing as good as he has, Lacazette playing as good as he has, and Tavares playing as good as he has. I think there's some decisions to be made. And for me, some people I feel like should continue to keep their spot, but I think that may be a conversation for another day. But let's move into.
Yeah, they said that they tried him yesterday. Both of them tried yesterday to get fit for this game, but they just didn't quite make it. But Arteta said they should be ready for the Leicester game.
Cool. That's going to be very interesting to see if they are ready, what decisions he makes, but let's see. Let's talk about our winners. So we kind of already talked about Ainsley. I do want to touch on Rob Holding. I think there's some other ones in there, maybe White or
Eddie,
whatever,
for sure.
and Eddie. But the only reason why I said Rob Holding was just because I think that out of all of the center back options that we have that are backups, I think he's the most usable. And I think that he gets the most shit, even though I think he's playing to his maximum. And his maximum is good enough to be in these types of games. And had White, because Rob Holding has some sort of injury as well, or some sort of knock or whatever. But what I was thinking, when he came in, I thought he was playing well enough where if White couldn't play against Leicester, I wouldn't be so afraid for him to play because I thought he was sharp. I thought his ball progression was okay. I think he progressed the ball up the pitch, dribbling almost just as much as White did. And he gets a lot of shit. And I'm not a big Rob Holding fan, but what I do want to see is when these backups come in, for them to play like players that give a shit. And I think he really did that. It's unfortunate that he got that muscle injury, but I think up until then, he was one of my favorite people out there on the pitch because I think he was doing as much as he could do and was keeping that back line going, So for me, I wanted to just give Rob Holding a little shout out, and his hair transplant is looking very good.
It's the reason.
Very good.
It's
the reason.
Are you sure?
We're 100%.
I mean,
sure.
It's looking a little bit like you can
It's
see he's
not
had a
done
hair
yet.
transplant. You can
It's
see
not
he's had a
done
hair
yet.
transplant. Oh, is it not? Okay,
It's-
so we're giving him props for something.
Yeah, you have to shave it a few
job.
times and then it kind of.
But it
How
looks
do you
better
know,
than.
Souls? How do you know, mate?
Man knows and it done the research. Get on it early, bruv. Get on it early, innit?
Oh my goodness. But yeah, I thought Holding was good, and there's some other ones that you could choose, and I'm sure you guys will, but I just I enjoyed watching Holding today, and I don't say that very often. But Souls, do you have a winner for today?
Ooh, who do I pick? Leno, he was good. Kolasinac was good. Martinelli, Pepe, man, I'm joking. Now I'm gonna give mine to I'll say Nketiah because I know I know what we're gonna do as a combined one. Do you know what? Yeah, I've given this kid a lot of stick, and I was like, nah, don't play him in it. Just let him rot on the bench, and he wants to go anyway. Just bring Balogun on. But do you know what though? I have to say, for a person who knows he's leaving more than likely leaving at the end of the season, he played his heart out. I don't know if he's playing for a move. I don't really care. As long as you come on the pitch and you play. And to be fair, that goal was funny, bruv. He messed that up so bad.
He did everything brilliantly, though.
Yeah, and then he just goes, oh, yeah. And then I was like, oh, my God, he missed. Oh, he went in. It went in. I was like, I was so pissed. I was like, how did you miss that? You did the hard thing. And then you just go do that. I was like, oh,
that is Pepe-esque. That is Pepe-esque. To do to make the hard things look easy and to make the easy things look hard. That's Pepe for me.
Made the move. The way he drove, he won the header firstly from Leno. That was a brilliant ball. And then I don't know what Leeds were doing. And then the defender just played him in. I was like, all right, fair enough. And then you just see Nketiah out of nowhere. And then just flicks the keeper. I was like, go on, Nketiah. This is what I want to see, lad. And then, I was like, oh my God.
If he had missed that would have been so bad. But the thing I like about Eddie, and I've always liked, is when he presses, he actually tries to win the ball. He actually tries to win the ball. There's some people that press, but that they're kind of just there. He actually tries to get the ball. No,
Yeah, I
CSR
think
does try to get the ball, I
no.
think.
Well, I beg to differ, but sorry, go on.
But he does try to get the ball, and I think he puts the opposition under pressure. Does he always make the right decisions? Does he hold on ball too long? Makes chances, yes. But he did the work, and I'm glad he got the goal at the end of it. He definitely was one of the better performers
He was
today.
industrious, but you know what? I don't think anybody really highlights the physical improvement that Eddie Nketiah has made, just not just, from last season, but just this summer in terms of his technical ability and retaining the ball, like contact from behind, his ability. People are saying that he's more complete. Like for me, it's not so much his dynamism or explosiveness, but it's his technical security kind of when in contact. When somebody would hit him, he's a lot more reliable on the ball. And anybody that is going to get Eddie Nketiah kind of is going to get a lot more of a technically complete player. I think he's looked a lot more technically clean, in general. It's still a little bit hit and miss. I'd like a little bit more of a consistent first touch. But in general, I've seen a big improvement in terms of his technique. And I think that bodes well, particularly for his profile. Like when you're looking at somebody that's going to be dropping into the middle third, and like that's the kind of striker he'd like to be, but then get on the end of chances, kind of like a tip of an arrow. It's a useful profile. I've always felt that Eddie's potential will be very similar to like a Jermaine Defoe, somebody that'll be excellent for mid-table clubs that will get you very consistent goals. I think he showed it today. His industry, all-around performance was really quite good. He tried to bring people into play, and sure, he gets a little bit lucky on his little scuff shot. But at the end of the day, he did all of the work to get there. That was a chance he made on his own, in my opinion. Leeds play him in, but you know what? He doesn't get there if he doesn't press the way he does, and he takes a brilliant touch around the keeper. Like that's not easy.
Over the keeper,
Over it, yeah. But that's a very difficult touch, and you know what? Yeah, it's a little bit lucky, but who
Can
cares?
I just say at the beginning as well, he was holding. I can't remember who was holding off, and I was just screaming at Kolasinac. I was like, "Where the are you? Like, how have you not?" Because he was holding on for a good 10 seconds, and no one came close. And I was like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "That's a goal. This is a goal if he lays it off."
Yeah, totally. I saw that as well. I actually tweeted that out because it just was like, where is somebody to? Yeah, it was mad. It was mad.
Oh yeah, Talani, I don't think there's any chance that Nketiah stays past this season. And performances like this for me, even though are quite good, don't really change my mind about the future of Eddie, just because we still
You're
have Balogun.
anti-Eddie.
I have been,
You're
and
anti-Eddie.
but see, the thing about me is that even if I don't like somebody or that's not my favorite player, I still gave him credit for today.
True.
Still doesn't change my mind. Balogun still needs some minutes. Martinelli, I think we'll get onto him too, but he needs some minutes. So for me, Eddie's definitely ready to stay in that mid-table Premier League club type of level. I'm sure he'll punish us maybe once or twice in the future because he is a good striker. But today he deserves some credit. I can't deny that. And yeah, I think there's one other person that we can talk about. We've already kind of talked about them, but I think Ben White, I know that I just have to say, there's this weird thing going around that he's
Saliba,
he's just this. Oh my gosh, I can't even get into that. I can't even get in because I need to mute Saliba from Twitter. I just need to because it's just crazy. But for Ben, I just feel like there's not enough emphasis on the improvements that he's made since the Norwich game, which coincides with when he started playing with Gabriel and gave him a chance to really get adapted to the team. There's this thing about, well, he's not good in the air. I think he's kind of shown people that that's a myth. There's also this, well, he can only progress the ball and he's not really a great passer. I'm pretty sure at this point, you can see that he's a great passer. And even he did a really nice ball over the top to Pepe. Of course, Pepe didn't get it, but the guy is so, so good. And I just feel like at some point we need to let go of Saliba for now, let him do what he's doing at Marseille and just enjoy Ben White for what he is, because he's so, so good. I don't think you really can deny it at this point. Is anybody on this panel thinking we need to pump the brakes on Ben White and leave it a little bit later to see? Or have we kind of seen enough to make us think
that's typical Arsenal?
I said this from
that. Typical Arsenal. Typical Arsenal. Now that you've got a settled, well-oiled, well-engined backline, you've got a partnership solidifying with Gabriel. And people are talking about Saliba. What? Because he had a good game or he's having good games in League 1. League 1, people. You know how I feel about League 1, Jess. Sorry. You got to come better than that to me.
I don't even want to talk about that. It doesn't deserve my time personally. I think that at the end.
Are you talking?
I think you're on mute, mate.
We can't hear you.
Unless it's a lag.
We can't hear you.
Is everything just...
Are you there?
Well, has everything just bugged out for him?
We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Go out and come back in.
Yeah, pop back in and out.
Go out and come back in.
No, but like I don't.
That.
I know, me too. He was very animated. I was like, oh my god. But no, I don't want to. I think that you give him the airtime that he doesn't need right now. Look, we've gone through the Saliba decision, good or bad. Why what was needed, but on Ben White purely, I think for him to build off that confidence, particularly with Villa, like the one thing I'll say, like he's been okay since Norwich. I think very good off the ball, but on the ball there were still issues. And for me, Villa was his standout. That was the breakout. Oh my God, I'm starting to see a lot more of the Leeds Ben White. And today was no different. I mean, he constantly broke out and was carrying into midfield. He was constantly, very composed on the ball. People were pressing him, and he's doing these deft little touches just to get out of a press. And it's not just the long balls, but his ability to just take the team forward is not something that we really saw. And I do think that's coinciding with his comfortability with the team, and of course his teammates. Like Gabriel doesn't speak English, and of course that partnership was going to take a little bit of time. But on paper, they absolutely mirror the weaknesses of each other, and it's brilliant. And yeah, I agree, Jess. Like the idiocy that he's poor in the air, that's stupid. I mean, Ivan Toney, the one time he struggled, has beat tons of people in the air. Ivan Toney is exceptional in the air. It's one of the best strikers in the league at it. So to use that as your logic for him being poor in the air was ridiculous. But again, I think he took charge. He was one of the very few that, for me, stepped up, especially in that first half, that for me was lacking control. It was a little bit in and out, but for me, he was a shining light in that defense, but also the midfield. He progressed more than our pivot did. As much as Ainsley was really bright and I really liked what he did, I felt Ben was much more penetrative in terms of what he was doing and, his switches of play. And so, yeah, I agree with you. He deserves his flowers. And look, I mean, I boldly said, and I don't even say boldly, just I said he was going to be better than Varane. I think that we're going to see it. Look, if people don't want to see it because Varane's injured now, calm. But like, this guy is really exploding. And I think we're seeing somebody very special on the ball. He starts doing that against Leicester and other teams. People aren't going to think it's ridiculous anymore. And they're going to have to give him his due.
I asked for this signing before the window even opened. I said I want Ben White at Arsenal. And everyone's like, no.
You said you didn't know if he was better than Rob Holding. That's what you said.
Yeah, I don't even like Rob Holding. I still don't like him. I don't care about him being a squad player. The thing is, like, for me, is as much, look, I rate Saliba, I think he's good, but what people forget, he's 20 years old. Well, 19, he became 20 this season, and he's young, and to put that kind of pressure on a centre-back, I'm not saying he can't take it. We're not saying that he's not ready, but he needs consistent football. He needs to go somewhere where he can learn his craft. Arteta said it. If he had gone to the Premier League last season for the 6-month loan, he was in this team this season. But he decided to go to League One. And look, you can rate it or you can hate League One. Look, I don't really have an opinion. I think there's PSG and that's about it, really. And then there's a few gems within the league. There's not really solid, I'd say 5, 6, 7 teams in there where you can really then sit there and go, actually, he's testing himself somewhere. The thing is, I like Saliba, but for me, Ben White was a needed signing. You need that experience, especially when it comes to like an under-23 signing. He's got a Premier League pedigree. He's played for Leeds. He knows different styles of football, and he's phenomenal. And he's a leader as well at the back.
We needed to replace David Luiz, so just factually.
We needed a leader. We can't have
you wanted
another.
To do, like whether the decision to make him on loan. I said this on Twitter where it was like, you can have a decision for an individual, but not be the greatest for the team. And what I really meant for that was individually, Saliba needed a loan. He needed his minutes and he needed to iron out his consistency. But for the team, having Saliba in, which he was very capable of doing, would not have been the best for the team. The team needed somebody a little bit more settled, in my opinion, somebody with, EPL experience, that we don't have to rely on somebody and kill him because you only come to the Premier League once. especially somebody that was bought for 30 million, the clamor that he's got, the media were going to be on him no matter what. I would rather he come into a team that is ready to support him driving into midfield. We still don't have a midfield that we all love. Despite how great our pivot is with our options, we are not a complete team. So for me, it doesn't make sense to ride out that inconsistencies with an already young Gabriel, who we knew was going to be his partner. So let's just put it to a side. I don't think Saliba deserves the debate anymore.
I don't get why when it's good.
I just feel like we need to leave the Saliba conversation until the end of the season, because it's completely separate from White, because we need another center back, because we're going to replace one of Pablo Mari, Rob Holding, or Chambers with Saliba. And he needs to be ready for that. And I think he will be. Now, the whole conversation on contracts and will he stay and all of that, we need to think about that at the end of the season. But what I don't like is when we start talking about White, you inevitably see Saliba pop up in those conversations, even when White is playing well, which lets me know that it's fueled by agenda and not so much about fact or reasoning. And that's why I just kind of dash them off really quickly, because if I see White and Gabriel doing their thing, Saliba can do what he's doing where he's at. I feel like it's more valid if White is playing bad. And up until this point, besides for me, the Brentford match, I don't think Ben White has been bad. I don't. That's just how I feel. But we can kind of move on from that a little bit. We got to go to the sad part. We have to talk about the losers. I think there was some. I think there was some. And we'll see where this leads us. Let me just pull up my little document, because I don't know why I can't remember what I wrote down.
In my head, I laughed at that as a pun. But anyways, go on. I'm a child.
Okay. So this hurts me to do this, but I'm gonna put Martinelli in there. But let me explain. I think it's more due to the fact that he needs game time. He's young. He needs to play more consistently. And I think just like maybe we said about El Neni hasn't played a lot, Cedric hasn't played a lot, these players haven't played a lot, Martinelli hasn't either. But I was kind of surprised at how slow he was on the ball. His decision-making for me was not great. He kind of dawdled on the ball sometimes. And I think if he would have just released it a little bit quicker, it would have been a lot better. I didn't see a lot of that trademark Martinelli burst. And that shocked me a little bit as well. And he didn't really make a play for the starting position that a lot of people feel like he deserves, based on really a season ago prior to his injury. And I think this was a very good visual representation of why Martinelli needs minutes, but also he does not deserve to start over some of the players that people have been saying that he should. Is he better than Pepe and all of this? I don't know. I think they play on different sides, so it's hard to really gauge. But I don't think he's making a play for Aubameyang off of the left. I don't think he really made a play for Emile Smith-Rowe off of the left. And there's, for me, a little bit of a conversation of what do we do with Martinelli? Because without this injury that we feel like is just around the corner, he could go through this season without really getting meaningful minutes. And it could be a wasted season for him. But he was poor. And I expected so much more, because when you see Martinelli on the team sheet, you're thinking we're going to get that explosiveness. We're going to get that pressing. We're going to get that Martinelli that we know and love. And I didn't see him today. And that was really disappointing. And it hurts me to do that. But what did you guys think?
I think he's recovering from mental side of his injury. And I know that's going to sound a bit weird, but for me, because sometimes, because for me, there was hesitancy in his play. And what I mean by that, there was a moment in I think it was in the first half, where he's basically through one-on-one. And if that was Chelsea Martinelli, that he's gone. He's one-on-one with the keeper, and he probably rounds the keeper and scores. But what happened was he was very hesitant. He was waiting to see what the defender was doing. And I think there's I'm not going to say it's PTSD necessarily, but there's an element of mental thing that he's trying to jump over, because he was waiting to see if the defender was going to come in and just take him out. And I feel like that's where the hesitancies and that's where the sort of slowdown in play is coming from. But I think that kind of comes, and that's why I think there is still a recovery period, because a player of his age to get an injury like that, I'm not going to say it doesn't scar everyone, and it may not be a major thing that he's scared for the rest of his life, but it's one of those where he just needs to find a way of just getting over that mental barrier that he is going to get tackled and nothing's going to happen to him. And I think that's kind of his, because don't forget when he first came back, I think against Man City, he got injured again. So, or there was it might have been a different injury, but the point was he's still got a leg injury again. And I feel like it does break you down mentally. And I think that's the reason why part of his game, and some of it is just minutes. He just needs to get minutes in his legs. He needs to get minutes in his game. And I think that sharpness and that thinking just comes back naturally. This is a tough game just to be thrown in. Well, I wasn't thrown into it, but it is a tough game just to be like, all right, here you go. You're having your start. Leeds are a good side, regardless of how poor they may have looked today. They are a good side that press, and they are probably, in my opinion, top 3 in terms of the fittest teams in the Premier League. They'll press for 90 minutes and don't tire out. So it is a difficult game for him to get back into and feel like he's got the space to do what he wants. But I think he'll get there. Just give him a few minutes, get him off the bench and let him make an impact. But I can't sit here and say he deserves to start.
I don't know, because for me, he had a very good cameo and a very sharp cameo in Palace. And like this was the game where I think most people had said, look, it's okay, like we needed somebody else at Villa, but I booked Leeds for you to get a 90 minutes. I booked Leeds to give you an opportunity to show yourself and basically show that you deserve a starting spot and you fight. And he didn't complete, that task. And I don't ever worry on youngsters not doing it because I know that their development is not linear. I know that they're going to have up and down moments. And, I never worry about that kind of thing. And with Martinelli, I don't want him to go out on loan because he's a goal threat. He just factually is a goal threat. And whether he's in poor form or not, for me, he represents somebody that provides things that the general front line don't. And that is attacking efficiency. He didn't do it on the night. He was poor. He was very poor on the ball. He dilly-dallied. He didn't release the ball himself. His passing was really quite poor. The thing that I really get annoyed with is I don't think he's a left wing. And the reason is he's constantly got his head down and he plays like a striker for me. Like you need that chaos for me, much more central. I don't think he does well progressing the ball up the pitch. And our left wing is that. In our system, our left wing is a facilitator. He's used in order to bring the ball up between the middle third to the attacking third. And that's just not his role. That's not what he's meant to do. At most people think of him as a left wing in the mold of a Son. Okay. And that is not the role that this system does. So for me, you have to understand what your system is asking your players to do. Does he fit into that role? And if he doesn't, and if you aren't confident about him getting consistent minutes, then maybe next summer we have a conversation about that. And that's totally fine. Maybe we do need to be brave enough to do it. But I personally would never do it because in my opinion, I think he's fine. I think he's fine with the squad. The only thing is I think he's more of a striker. I'm not a fan of where we have him at left wing. And I think for me, he's going to get opportunities to show that he's doing well. And I don't need him to basically be on a ascendancy that's constantly up. And so, yeah, he's in poor form. He's struggling. And I think you can call a spade. But for me, he still offers things that the front line doesn't. So he's very useful to the squad. So I would never not have him in. Even in Jan, I would never loan him. I just think that, he just needs a little bit of time. That's all. He's just having a rough patch of form because his previous cameo was excellent. The 10 minutes against Palace, they were explosive. He was clean technically. In fact, he was so good that I think many people clamored he could have been in the starting lineup the next game. So, I mean, this is just the up and down that, you're going to get with youngsters. And, not everybody can be Bukayo and Emil. Like those are very unusual situations. So, yeah.
That's why we can't lump all these young players in together and just decide that because they're all similar ages that they're all going to grow up together and be perfect together and all of that. Martinelli has had a very difficult injury to come back from. He's one of those, I think he's different than Saka and ESR were because he's not technically reliable. He's not going to get as much playing time as them because Arteta really values that, especially in build-up, and he just doesn't really have that. So you have to kind of pick and choose the moments when you use him. And I think he's very beneficial to the squad, and I am apprehensive about him going out on a loan. And I think Arteta's already kind of quashed that and said they're not even thinking about it, probably because they know that there's just an injury or an absence or somebody unavailable where we're going to need him. So I'm not too worried about it. I did put him in there because I think it would be
disingenuous not to.
Yeah, disingenuous not to. But I'm not too worried about it, but I think we can go ahead and move on to the one that we should probably be looking at. I mean, I think people in the comments will feel like it's unfair because why can't we treat Martinelli and Pepe similar? Well, because they're nothing alike.
One's
One cost
26 and an established player, and one is a burgeoning youngster.
Yeah, and one cost us like freaking pennies, and the other one cost us 72 million. And I just felt like with Pepe, every move really died with him. And I tweeted that usually when Pepe has a performance like this, he comes up with a goal or an assist, which makes people think that he played well. When
Which
in
he did.
reality, how many goals could we have gotten or better chances at goal if he had just been better? You know what I mean? And I think a lot of this was already kind of confirmed against Aston Villa because he didn't play in that game. And look how many goals we scored. He didn't play against Spurs. Look how many goals we scored. But when he scores, or when he comes into the game, we may score one goal. He may be involved, but ultimately a lot of our attacking moves die at his feet. And it's just not good enough. Like, it's just not good enough. And this, for me, wasn't the first time that we've seen this performance. This is what we've been seeing. I think this one is just going to be very hard to argue away because it was just that poor against a very poor Leeds side. Like that, this was not a good Leeds side. It was very like this is as good as they can do from pretty much their front line back, but they weren't good, and he still didn't look like this was a level beneath him. And that's worrying. So I don't think we can get around looking at Pepe as somebody that just does not fit, is not improving, and does not improve us in what we're trying to do in the attack. Like, and I can't hear the whole we're being so harsh and all of that, because you cannot look at that performance and fundamentally say, well, it's just because he's not getting playing time. It's just because, he's off of the right. This guy is just not good enough. And I'm okay with saying it at this point.
He is not good enough, but I mean, I think what annoys me the most about this situation is you provide a system at this point for him to thrive. There can be no excuses he didn't have Emile Smith-Rowe to help him combine with. There can be no excuses he didn't have an overlapping right back that was going to provide him an option. You cannot have the excuses it was against opposition that, he couldn't be scoring against. There were gaps in midfield. The press of Leeds was horrendous. There were constant gaps as an outlet, and there were constant times, Pepe was released, and, it died. I call them the Bermuda Triangle of attacks, like where attacks go to die. And really what it is I'm tired of the inconsistency in the decision-making, the inconsistency in your technical ability. And at the very least, the biggest point that I've made is when Saka plays poor, because he can, and he did. I even argue Villa was a poor game for him. But at least when he plays poor, he contributes in a press. He doesn't ruin our structure. We're able to see him function in that front line and still provide a benefit. Here, when Pepe doesn't play well, that entire side is dead. I don't see us progressing through that side. And so for me, it becomes very, very difficult to defend. The idea that you're going to grant him an assist off that corner is laughable. He was one of the worst players on the pitch, period. Both teams. It was really, really horrendous. And, I think for me, I'm just getting tired of defending a 26-year-old, 72 million pound asset that should be doing better. Whether you like him or whether you don't like him, he should be doing better. And in order to recover this asset, that's what I'm in. I'm in this mode of kind of recovery. How do I get the best out of him? And for me, you cannot start. He is way too predictable cutting in on his left. He can't go into out. It's not possible with him. He constantly shows his left foot. So for me, the best way to make use of somebody like that is through a substitute appearance, somebody trying to change the game if we're looking to play a false nine with wing forwards. I just don't think he is comfortable in the system. I don't think he's comfortable in this team or in this league. And he's going to thrive elsewhere. And that's okay. Like, things can happen that way. Teams do get those things wrong. But I think we need to learn when to cut our losses with somebody like that. And there are people that we could buy and make better use of that resource, better use of that wage, better use of that asset instead of letting it dwindle on the bench. And so for me, I was very disappointed this game because I felt like, look, prove me wrong. Say that we do have a bias. Like, why couldn't you perform on the day today? What was the reason? We were at home. We had an attacking setup. You had every single opportunity to thrive. You had spaces. They were poor on the left-hand side. So I don't know. I don't know where to go with him. I think you do have to build it through substitute appearances. I don't think that, we can really see him in the Premier League right now. I think it cements what Bukayo gives us, because even in their worst forms, one is able to contribute to a press and keep our structure intact, and the other just can't. So,
I mean, we can't sacrifice Bukayo at this point, and I just our two best attacking performances this season have come without him in the team. I'm sorry, but it just is just there, and he's had time, and he just hasn't done it, and it's all of this. Well, Arteta's not doing this, Arteta's not doing that. Is he out there moving his leg out from underneath him so he can't dribble? Is he out there sticking his leg up in the air so he can't trap? Is he the one that's making? Is Arteta in his head making him make those decisions? Like he's just. You can probably blame maybe Arteta for, I don't know, leaving him isolated out wide in some games. I don't think that's the best way to use him. But ultimately, Arteta's not trapping the ball for him. Arteta's not making the decisions for him. And at the bare minimum, you should require that from your players if they're worth a certain amount and they're starting over your best players. And at this point, whenever Pepe starts before Bukayo, or we move Bukayo out of the way so that Pepe can play off of the right, I always think we regret it. And so this game, he did not make a play for that starting spot, and I would expect him to start on the bench against Leicester. And I don't understand are we going to move Emile? Like, what are we going to do? Is Aubameyang going to drop to the bench? Like, at this point, Lacazette, Aubameyang, Emile Smith-Rowe, and Pepe have pretty much solidified those spots, and Pepe hasn't done anything to get back in there. But what did you think about Pepe's performance today? Like, I know you don't rate League One, you kind of feel like we got the raw end of the deal here, but what did you think?
Wire fraud. That's what I think of that. Like, Raul defrauded our football club. Let that sink in. 72 million. The guy is not even worth 25 million. 30 million if you want to, I don't know, sell him to somewhere where they've sold a player on for a lot of money and they don't care about how much they spend. But yeah, no, with Pepe, for me, he is like, Gooners in here will remember Javinho. I hope you don't remember Yaya Sanogo. He's like a combination of those two as far as I'm concerned. But the positive news, and I heard what George said, is with Javinho, he went on to Roma and he thrived. And I honestly believe that this is a league issue. It is a system issue for sure, but I think fundamentally it's a league issue. And the reason I say that, it's not only just the intensity of the league, but I think Pepe is a head player. In his mind, I think he's already defeated. I think he already knows this league is just a bridge too far for him to really excel at. And I think however much he wills it, you see more of the calamity, you see more of the falling over, you see more of the misplaced passes and lost possession. So with Pepe, I don't even begrudge him. I really am rooting for him. But like I said earlier, he makes the easy things look hard. And then as we saw with was it the Palace game when he was he's by the corner flag and somehow managed to get out with the ball. Like I was like, oh my goodness. Like when he did that, I thought he was going to lose possession. But when he did that, I was not expecting that sort of skill. But then in the same game, he was under no real pressure. And then he just sort of panicked and then just passed the ball to the Palace player. So, yeah, I think we need to cut our losses in a nutshell.
Yeah. And I understand some people are still reluctant because they've seen flashes and all of that, but it's been 3 years of flashes. It's under two different managers. It's off the right. It's off of the left. It's different systems. It's all of those things. And we have a very good right winger, and we have a couple of players that can play left wing that I wouldn't feel comfortable moving them away to maybe give Pepe a spot. So it's a hard place to be in, but I think he just didn't have a good game today. And he hasn't had one in a while.
He's also not technically good enough to be so reliant on his left foot. No, I'm sorry. He's just not technically good enough to be so reliant on his left foot. And that's why he's so predictable. And that's why quality defenders, he's not a problem. He's not a problem for them. You know,
I think the other thing is that because he gets double teamed, because that's the easiest way to stop him, he can't make the decision to find the open player that's open. That's the thing, is if somebody double teams you, there's probably a pass on, and he just can never really find it. His decision making is not there, and he's not Mahrez. Mahrez is somebody that heavily relies on his left foot. But the thing about Mahrez is that he's so clinical with it that it's still dangerous. And I think even Pepe struggles with that, where it's not dangerous enough where it's okay for him to be reliant. And so we've been having the same conversations about Pepe for 3 seasons now. He's 27 years old, so I just don't really understand why we're holding on, but we'll need to beat down on him.
It's 72. He's our record signing. Our records, like, look how depressing this situation is. Our record signing. We don't spend. We're not the sort of club that goes, yeah, 72 million. That's fine. If it's shit, oh no, that's fine. We'll spend another, 70, 80 million on a player. We're Arsenal. We don't do that. So I can understand why people at the club want this to work. I can understand why certain quality players, as we know, make way for Pepe for certain games. But I think Arteta knows, like, he can't jeopardize his career on this guy. And that is what will happen if he continually tries to play him in the league, I think, because he won't deliver and will end up not winning games we should win, and we cannot afford to not be in Europe next
You just
season.
factually can get better use for your money at this point. Like, you sell him, whatever you want to sell him, whatever you want to say about your subjective opinion, is he good or is he good enough or not, right? You can make better use of that squad bench option, okay? And what you can do is you can sell that for £30 million, and you know what? That buys you a Houssam Aouar. That buys you a Noah Lang. That buys you somebody that maybe fits a little bit better on the left, that you can move Emile Central. You can use that money to better effect on the squad. And for me, if he's not going to fit the system and we're not going to play with wing forwards, you're basically doing him a disservice just as much as he is a disservice to us. And that's not fair on both parties. If you're not going to coordinate a system that fits him, why do you keep him? Like, I don't understand what he would do for you. And, his ability to kind of produce output right now is not the question when you've got basically Pierre, who's going to provide you your output. Like, I think a lot of these questions are becoming a little bit more to the forefront, maybe given Pierre's form, given the fact that we do have a reliable goal scorer right now. We do have somebody that's stepping up and doing so in not just the output, but doing so in a complete performance, linking play, contributing to the press. Like, that is the point. It's not that Pepe is shit and he does nothing well. It's this idea that when he's poor, he doesn't help us off the ball. In fact, he hinders us. And it's also the point that when he does get a goal or assist, he's poor in other areas of his game that are a detriment to this team. So for me, the decision's easy. Play him as a sub, keep him as part of the squad, try to build whatever value that you can, build that asset up, and then use it better in the summer to change your money and your asset, but just buy a better profile for your team. And,
Exactly.
The same could be said for Xhaka, other players that we need to move on from in different departments. But factually, he is just not doing it, and he's not cutting it. Whatever you want to blame, manager, whoever, it's just a fact that he is not doing what he set out to do. So let's move on. Let's clip it. As you say, Jess, we have a problem with this, as Arsenal fans, but at Arsenal as well, knowing when to move on. And I think we're making the exact same mistake for somebody that subjectively meets your eye of what a good player is, at least for some fans.
Yeah.
And I feel for him. I just want to say quickly, like, at the actual Emirates, you can feel the tension with Pepe. You can feel the jeers, and he would feel that as well. And this is what I mean about mentally. Some people are wired when they do that. They're like, you know what, F yous lot, I'm gonna show you why I am who I am. Whereas Pepe goes the opposite direction. He just chokes.
He sinks.
He drowns in it. Yeah, he drowns in it.
Yeah, and that's just why I'm like, I don't think it's as deep as people are making out to seem. And I do think there's an element of distrust in Arteta. So anybody who is on the outs with Arteta, or maybe somebody who's not getting as much playing time, should be out there because I don't trust Arteta. But I would say with Pepe, it's pretty freaking clear he's just not up to the standard. But Nicholas makes an interesting point, saying that the losers are the academy products looking for a debut. Arteta is stingy with giving youngsters minutes. And I think this is why it hurts us not being in Europe, because we're not able to kind of shift some of those minutes. And, we have to be more front-footed in these cup competitions early to keep us in it. And we also have to give minutes to people who would naturally be coming in Premier League matches. And that is your Cedrics, your Chambers, your Holdings, and the guys that we maybe don't like as much, but let's be real, they're going to be the guys coming in. And we kind of saw that today. Like in the past, the Carabao Cup match, I think I remember one just a couple of years ago when Emery was the manager, and we had like Reece Nelson, Willock out there, Martinelli was out there. It was like a bunch of like kids. Now it's basically like the second string, and Salah Adin, is it Salah Adin, was supposed to, people were thinking he was going to make his debut, and I just thought to myself, and I know George, you said this as well, this is an experience vibe, he's not coming in, no way. Even Charlie Patino, didn't he make the bench against Wimbledon? Like, these guys aren't going to get minutes because, quite frankly, it's more important to get Cedric in them minutes, and that may not feel good, but that's kind of where we're at the moment. But I do think I agree with the first part that the academy products looking for a debut are not really getting those moments. But Arteta's stingy with giving youngsters minutes, I think, is something that I
It's a
don't agree
lie.
with, because
It's a
he has
lie.
to.
Well, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I'm sorry to butt in, but it's just factually a lie. We have one of the youngest squads, if not the youngest squad in the league. And when you're looking at academy debuts, Arsenal has one of the most prominent squads of academy debuts from Hale End. Like, that's just not true. What it is for me is about giving an academy player the right environment to thrive. When you're looking for a debut, you have to make sure that you can fit them. When we look at Aziz and these people, Balogun, when we gave them their debuts, that was in the Europa League, that was in the last dying embers of a very poor game, that you can give a debut to somebody like that. Why would we just chuck in, Salah Adin to people that do need minutes, like your Ainsley Maitland-Niles, your El Nenis? Like, we have a big squad. The one critique I'm with people on is we don't do enough to kind of cut this squad. The idea that Balogun can't get minutes because we didn't move on Eddie. The idea that, Laka wasn't moved on earlier, and that's why maybe some of our young strikers can't get minutes. I am there with people on that. But this idea that Arteta is stingy with youngsters, that's just not true. He trusts so many youngsters, and we have the youngest squad in the league. Like, you can't have it both ways. If he does that, then he surely doesn't have the youngest squad in the league. He surely doesn't have one of his top two all the time starters being Hale and youth that we've got from our academy. This doesn't make sense to me. Surely he would play Pepe if he was stingy like that. So yeah, that for me doesn't make sense really at all. So
Yeah, I think we're just a little bit wanting to see, or some people are really wanting to see. They're tired of seeing Kolasinac. They're tired of seeing Elneny. But the reality is they're a part of the squad, and they're the next man up if something happens to Thomas, if something happens to so and so,
Totally.
and
Totally.
Patino is not. So giving him minutes is not a priority right now. And quite frankly, I think some of the kids that people want to see blooded in, they're not Jack
17,
Wilshere
Jess.
and Ramsey. I think people need to get this out of their mind. I hate to say this, and like I think Saka and ESR are as close as you can get at this moment from our players that came from the academy to the Wilshires and Ramseys. The other players, they're just not there. Just because they were 16 and they were playing for Arsenal, they were elite talent. Like, so the whole Charlie Patino
Totally.
should be playing because he looks better on compilations and Elneny is dead. It's just not that simple. And because Arteta chooses to play Elneny, that doesn't mean that he's saying, I think Elneny is just so much better than Charlie Patino. Well, factually, he probably is. And he's more important to this squad than Charlie Patino is at the moment. Like, it's just, for me, it's not that deep. I would like them to get more playing time, but I think it's weird that it's placed on Arteta. Like, it's very much so like Arteta focused. Like, he hates the youth, because that's where this is coming from. He hates the youth, and he likes players that are not as good. It's just fake, and it's phony, and it's not real. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say that I think you see Salah playing in that game if we're like 5 or 6 goals clear. That's when you see Salah. You don't, 2-0, as you've all eloquently stated. We have got players who will be playing if there are injuries, and these guys need competitive minutes. It's just a no-brainer to be playing them in the League Cup. So I get the energy, but again, as you said, just without enough games going around, without Europa League games, for people to play and stay competitive in. We've literally just got the FA Cup, the League Cup, and the league, and obviously we're not going to risk it per se if we got fit first teamers. So yeah, I guess we just have to look at things in that vein, really.
Does the FA Cup or Carabao Cup, in your opinions, I'll do it to the panel, give you an equivalent level to Dundalk at home, which is when we gave Balogun and Aziz our debut?
That's a good point. No,
like is there a comparison here? Like, I'm trying to understand these like close arguments that really make zero sense that I see on Twitter.
And those were debuts under Arteta.
Liverpool playing Preston. Liverpool playing Preston tomorrow, aren't they? And that you'd like to argue that kind of a level.
But it's not about
could be a chance.
It's not about they deserve a chance like that. But do they? Like, do you know what I mean? Like this idea of like they deserve a chance.
They have enough time.
He's hindering them from progressing their career.
Because how can a 29-year-old?
Salah is 19. Like, he's not going anywhere, you guys.
There you go. How can a 29-year-old be displaced by a 19-year-old because the 19-year-old deserves a chance? The world doesn't work like that, I'm afraid. And
it's more important to get Lacazette, Lokonga, and Tavares minutes as well, because they're going to play against Leicester. Yeah. We have more important priorities. Our main focus is to stay in these cup competitions, get our squad players minutes, and keep our starters fresh for the Premier League, because we need to get into Europe. Blooding youngsters, although is a part of our DNA, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world if they don't get it this season. And it doesn't mean that Arteta hates the youth when he has a team full of under 23-year-olds.
People are talking without watching them, Jess. This is what gets me annoyed. Look, I follow the youth, and I'm very passionate about that. And, Charlie Patino is 17 years old. And I'm sorry, guys, he's in a boy's body. As much as I love him and about how talented he is, giving him 5 minutes against men when he could get seriously injured does nothing for him. Giving somebody 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 10 minutes is not a development argument. That doesn't make sense, okay? At the end of the day, you need to make sure that these players arrive in the right environment. And for me, that means when they're physically ready. That means against opposition that you can cater and make sure that they can thrive in, not that they're going to become insignificant and not play. If anything, we should be angry that Balogun didn't get a chance today. And which I am, because I love Balogun. But I knew that was going to be the case the minute that Eddie wasn't sold. That's the issue. Not the fact that you're not giving debuts or that you're blocking this. It's the fact that the pathway right now for those players is blocked, and we could get angry at that. Not for your Patinos, your Salah Ad-Din, who, by the way, people didn't know about because he was very injured last season. He had a huge injury, and he's among our best prospects. He's played very good the last couple games for the academy. But at the end of the day, that's another player who's physically not developed. He's just turning 18, and he's very, very young. So for me, when was an opportunity to do that in this game? I don't see it. In fact, I would argue if he got injured, people would rag on him about that. People would critique the manager for that. So for me, it doesn't make sense. The time for opportunities comes, A, with opposition that you can afford it if you're in the Europa League, or in preseason when you give them an opportunity to develop and you give them an opportunity to shine. And if they do, they're part of the squad. Simple as that.
I think kind of where I sit on this is it's kind of like I wish he would have got minutes, but equally, it's not something to sit around and blame Arteta for and hold this like grudge against Arteta because he didn't get the minutes. And that's kind of where I sit. It's a little bit of I wish he would have got minutes, but it's definitely not something to sit around and be like Arteta is just not doing his job. His job was to win the game today, and he did that. That was the only thing that he really needed to do today. Anything else would have been a bonus. Didn't get his bonus points today. It is what it is. But he did give Aziz his debut. He did give who was the other person you said? There was somebody
Aziz
else.
And Balogun?
And Balogun, yeah. So it's not that he's never done it before, but that's enough of that. We have Leicester at the weekend. So when do we play them? On Saturday?
Saturday, 12:30.
Saturday at 12. Okay, so woo! Are you guys ready for that?
100.
I know I am. I know I'm ready for it. I mean, the thing is now we have an 8-game win streak now, or not win, unbeaten.
He gained
so we need to keep that up.
I think it's 16 goals scored, 4 conceded. in the last 8.
Yeah, for sure. So we need to keep that up. And it's gonna be an early one for me. So, but I am looking forward to it. So at some point between now and then, I will do a preview. I'll let you guys know. A little bit of a busy week this week, so I'm not sure when I'm gonna get a chance to do it. But job done. We're into the next round of the Carabao Cup. Going into the weekend against Leicester, people got minutes. Hopefully Ben White is not sick, and we can just kind of do what we're doing. So there's about 218 of you guys watching on all platforms. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, share this with a friend. Let us know in the comment section what you thought. All of that great and wonderful stuff. And we will see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.